Hey, what's up? A couple things in news to cover with the Cleveland Browns. One football related, the other one is football related by proxy. But it has to do with the Desean Watson situation. So there will be 2 points in this video where two different stories will be covered. Do with that information as you will. But the first thing to talk about is the thing that's kind of the elephant in the room, right? The Desean Watson situation. He said he settled 20 of the 24 cases, released a statement yesterday saying that he has settled 20 of the 24 cases. This is not unexpected for most people. I think we kind of assumed that sometime within this period, he would probably get to the point to a settlement with the bulk, if not all of these cases, just to make things a little bit more swift for him during the season, right? Just get this out of the way from a him standpoint. So this is not really a surprise. The timeline of it and when it's coming out, given that we heard news of, Watson having meetings with the league and then the league talking about his suspension with the NFLPA just a couple of days ago. Now that the settlements have come out kind of in that same stream of releases of information. Well, not releases of information, but same kind of week tells you that the ball in terms of settling his suspension is moving. And we'll see what happens with that going forward. As far as any takeaway to see what this is going to do to the suspension, I really have none. I have no idea. And I don't think anybody has a single idea of what this suspension is going to be or should be, right? Because everybody's opinions on that is different, but more certainly we don't know what the NFL, what their process is and what they're looking at. We can look at precedent, but again, the NFL is not binded to precedent in that way, right? They have made suspensions for one thing, 5 games, and that same exact thing happens and they made it 3. NFL does things on a case-by-case basis. So what happened before really does not matter, right? We can say Calvin Ridley's situation. We can say Josh Gordon's situation. Both of those were things that the NFL had proof of. This is a little bit of a different situation. You could say with the settlement that you can at least say that you have evidence that he broke the personal conduct policy. But I don't know what necessarily the punishment's going to be, just because it's impossible to predict these things. Again, the speculation day to day over this kind of thing is something that's difficult to do, and almost impossible and just not worthwhile. I would just wait till the suspension is announced to really go in on that, one way or the other, just because right now, I've seen with this case, people taking victory laps on either side of this, and it's kind of pointless at this point, right? Like, nobody should be taking a victory lap in this situation, period. There's nothing to be victorious about, one way or the other. And also, there's just, what's the point in a victory lap when you don't even know what the suspension is going to be? That kind of seems like a way to look foolish either way. So I have no idea what the suspension is going to be. Going to just wait and see on that front. But that's the Watson news. Let's go on to something a bit more football related, which has brought up a bit of an interesting conversation when it comes to the future of Kareem Hunt as a Cleveland Brown. Because as everybody knows, Kareem Hunt's contract is up at the end of this year. Kareem Hunt in an interview with Mary Kay, and we can pull it up right here. That interview, I'm not going to play the whole thing because the audio's not coming through great. But Kareem Hunt basically said that, heading into this final year of his contract, he would love to come back to the Cleveland Browns. He grew up here and would love to retire at Cleveland Browns. Now, this is standard fare for a player going into the final year of their contract to say this. But also, I think Kareem Hunt does want to stay here. The question isn't necessarily will Kareem Hunt want to come back as much as it is, do the Cleveland Browns want to bring back Kareem Hunt, right? Because when you look at the tea leaves, it's not necessarily leaning in that direction, right? The first thing I'll point to is the fact that there are 5 running backs on the roster. 5 of them. Now, they're not going to keep 5 throughout the year, but this 5 is different from when they have an excess during camp in other years, because these aren't just 5 guys who are on the roster. These are 5 guys who you can say that the organization put a reasonable stake in, right? Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, both had new deals done. Dearness Johnson, who just got a new deal, not a substantial deal, but still a new deal, bigger than what he got last year. Jerome Ford is a 4th round pick, and Demetric Felton got a lot of time in camp last year, and he's a 7th round pick. These are not guys they picked up off the street like John Kelly that are filling up this room. These are 5 guys that they've invested in the running back room, which means that they are planning on some kind of future with one of these guys, right? So if you want to elevate Jerome Ford, if you want to elevate Demetric Felton, or if you want to elevate Dearness Johnson, well, somebody's got to go in that main rotation between Chubb and Hunt. It's not going to be Nick Chubb anytime soon. You look at Kareem Hunt, who's the older running back, doesn't have as many miles, but older, right? He's 26, 27. He'll be 27 in a couple months here. And while that is young for me, right? I'm 27. You at home, 27 is pretty young. For running backs, that's about when the bell tolls for them, right? That's when NFL teams decide that they don't want to pay you, is when you get to that age. Because if we can look at somebody like a Devonta Freeman, right? Devonta Freeman was a pretty good running back throughout his entire career. Had 2 1,000-yard seasons, right? It's more than what Kareem Hunt had. Kareem Hunt had that 1,000-yard season. Good receiver out the backfield, right? Pretty similar to Kareem Hunt. You look at him in Atlanta when he got to 27. That was his last year in Atlanta, right? And then he kind of bounced around, and he got picked up off the street last year by Baltimore. And you see what the issue is. NFL teams don't mind paying for a running back under contract for a year when they're 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. But once you start to hit 28, 29 in the big 3-0, NFL teams stop their interest in you when it comes to investing money in you. And the fact that, Kareem Hunt's approaching that age, right? He's going to be, approaching 30 pretty soon. Well, not approaching 30 pretty soon here, but he's going to be approaching those years where NFL teams find contracts undesirable for running backs. We can look at Todd Gurley. We can look at a bunch of other running backs. Melvin Gordon, his money fell off at this point. A bunch of running backs. David Johnson. Like, you can go through a list of them. It's not just one. NFL teams just in general don't feel like paying running backs once they get to that age. Kareem Hunt's approaching that age, and the Browns have 1, 2, 3 other running backs not named Nick Chubb or himself that the Browns have invested something in. Jerome Ford being quite peculiar, right? And Demetric Felton, somebody who can do the receiving stuff out the backfield. Dearness Johnson has proven to be pretty good at that. Not as good as Kareem Hunt, but as good as you want a running back to be at that. And you see the issue here for Kareem Hunt and his argument to get more money. It just, to me, got to be realistic about the situation. Just doesn't seem very likely that Kareem Hunt gets another contract with the Cleveland Browns, because it just doesn't make that much sense for the Browns to go in that direction. Straight up. It just doesn't. And for Kareem Hunt, I hope him the best. I hope he has one of those AP careers, right, where people thought Adrian Peterson was done around that age, and he had like 10 more years. Well, not 10 more, but 5 more years, right? Or Frank Gore, or any of these other guys who kind of lasted a while. But those are kind of the exception, not the rule. Most running backs, by the time they hit 27, 28, the math is out on them that, that's when you want to get out on a running back. It's unfortunate. It's kind of unfair. They don't even get paid that much in that age range. So their most productive years, they can't really even negotiate a new contract. And by the time they're able to get a new contract, NFL teams don't see the value in them anymore, which is just kind of unfortunate for running backs. Not just kind of, really unfortunate for them. But that's just the reality that the NFL is. So Kareem Hunt, I hope he does get the storybook ending to his career. Cleveland-born guy, finishing his career in Cleveland, sure, that would be great. But I got to be real with y'all. This does not seem like a likely thing to happen, and I would say just enjoy Kareem Hunt for this year, because I think this is probably Kareem Hunt's last year in Cleveland. Not because he's a bad player or anything. He's been a great player the last few years, just because the numbers on it don't make that much sense anymore. Also, hey, there is the possibility, and I don't want to sound like it's just Kareem Hunt's done this year no matter what. There is the possibility that Kareem Hunt has a monster year, and the Browns see the value in keeping Kareem Hunt, and they feel like they can keep him at a reasonable number. There is a chance that happens, right? Because even if Kareem Hunt does have a monster year, it's going to be like a Clowney situation where the market ain't going to be that hot on a 27-year-old running back that, had a good year, but he's 27 years old. The market's just not going to be too demanding for that guy. So it could be a situation like that where they could bring him back, and it would make a ton of sense. It would be nice to have Kareem Hunt back, but I just would not have my heart set on it. I think more than likely Kareem Hunt has a really good year. Maybe he resigns at a lesser deal, but if he doesn't do anything that's spectacular, right, have the breakout, and he could have the breakout with everything going on this year, then I would expect the Browns to move one of those young running backs up. Maybe a Dearness Johnson, who's younger and cheaper. Maybe a Jerome Ford, who will be younger and cheaper. And kind of move into a new era of a running back tandem. They've kept that room well stacked for a number of years. Part of that is just to have depth. The other part of that is to, plan for the future. And this is what I think they're planning for. So that's what I think on that situation. Let me know what you think in that situation. You guys have a great day. Have a good night.